Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are well on the way with studying and that you're all super confident and that we're all here to just have a discussion to talk about any weak points that you may have or any questions, anything that you may be struggling with. I know that with Psych 1000, the problem usually isn't the content, it's usually just remembering it. So we can also go through some practice questions. So what we do tonight is entirely up to what you guys need. So yeah, just let me know. You can turn on your mic or in the chat. What is it that we should go over? And remember, I'm in third year, so I did this course 2 years ago. So if I take a little while to answer, that's just because I'm looking through my notes to try and find the best possible answer for you guys. So yeah, what do you guys need help with or want to focus on? Or if there are no concerns, we can just go over some practice. We can go over a practice test and call it a night. Whatever you guys need. Anybody? I don't have a past, it's not really a past paper per se, but I do have, it's a practice test that I got when I was doing the course. So are you guys okay with doing that? Just going through the answers? Okay. So let me just share my screen. Chanel, could you allow me to share my screen, please?
Sure, give me a minute, please.
Okay.
You can try now, Ashley.
Okay, great. Alrighty. Okay, is everyone seeing?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it's multiple choice and I do have the answers here. So we can just go straight in with number one. Wait, before I start, are you guys doing content from September or is it after mid-semester?
I think it's after mid-semester.
Okay, great. This is the right paper then. Okay, so social psychology is best defined as the scientific study of A, deviant behavior, B, sociology, C, social mores, or D, social influence. So you guys can just drop the answer in the chat. So I'm seeing that Samantha is saying D. Does anybody have a different answer? D. Okay, great. Yes, so it is D. Social psychology is best defined as the scientific study of social influence. Okay, so for number two, according to research, humans have a biological need for interpersonal interactions. So this is called the A, need for friends theory, B, need for intimacy theory, C, the need for interpersonal interactions theory, or D, the need to belong theory. So Lauren is saying C. Anybody else? Okay, Camille says D. 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 Okay, yes, so the answer is D. It is the need to belong theory. Okay, so moving on to question 3. So research on inmates placed in solitary confinement suggests that they experience more psychological symptoms, especially mood and anxiety problems than other inmates. However, this finding may be difficult to interpret because some inmates may be more emotionally maladjusted to begin with. So which of the 6 principles of scientific thinking does this research finding fit into? So it could be A, extraordinary claims, B, replicability, C, ruling out rival hypotheses, or D, Occam's razor. C. Okay, yes. So C is right. This would be ruling out rival hypotheses. Also, if anyone, I'll go into the questions if anyone has any concerns or they want, so if you want me to explain something further, feel free to do so.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Could you explain Occam's razor, please?
Okay, so Occam's razor, it's basically saying if you have 2 explanations or you have 2 hypotheses as to why something is happening, the simpler explanation is usually more correct. Or not correct, but should be accepted. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so an example. Okay, I'll give a personal one. When I was younger in prep school, my mom used to pick me up every day. And I used to want to go home right as the bell rang, right? So if I'm there after school, sitting there for like half an hour, my first thought would be, oh, my mom is late because she got in a car accident and she's in the hospital and she can't come to the phone right now and she can't come to school because she's severely injured and blah 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 blah. Or I could have thought, oh, she's probably just running late at work. So with Occam's razor, the hypothesis that you would accept in that situation is that she's running late at work rather than this complex story that I made up of her getting in a car accident, you know? Does that clarify it? Okay, lovely. All right, so number 4. So research finds that increases in loneliness are tied to heightened rates of depression in both teenagers and adults. But this does not suggest that the depression is a direct result of loneliness. This is an important consideration for the critical concept of A, falsifiability, B, replicability, C, Occam's razor, or D, correlation versus causation? Okay, D. Right. So you're all correct. It is correlation versus causation. And everyone's clear on the difference between them, right? Nobody has any problems with correlation and causation?
Excuse me, please. Could you just go back over falsifiability, please?
Falsifiability. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so something is, a statement is falsifiable if you find evidence that contradicts the hypothesis. So let's say that all chairs have 4 legs, right? This claim then becomes falsifiable once you find a chair that has 3 legs. So falsifiability is just trying to, it's the exception to the, or it's the opposite of what you hypothesize. Yeah, how information can be disproved. Is that clear? Okay. All right, so number 5. So when we attempt to explain the cause of someone's behavior, we are utilizing A, impression management, B, attributions, C, self-serving bias, or D, behavior assignment. Okay, B. Anybody else has a different answer? Okay, so Danica is right. The answer is B. So an attribution, it's the reason we give to explain, you know, our behavior or someone else's behavior. So the answer for number 5 would be B. Is that clear with everyone? Anybody?
Wait, can you repeat what you just said?
So the answer for number 5 is B, attributions, because an attribution is the reason we give to explain our own behavior and to explain other people's behavior.
Okay, thank you.
Self-serving bias. So this is what, it's like a cognitive process that you use to make yourself feel better, like to increase your self-esteem in a sense. So you kind of tend to think of yourself more positively in order to feel better about yourself. So for example, if you get an A in a course, you'd be like, yeah, that's all on me. It's because I'm proud of myself for getting that A. It's because I studied hard. I did all the work, blah, 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 blah. But if you get an F in a course, you fail a course, you're like, oh, it's not my fault. It was a bad lecturer. I did all I could. It's just a hard course. So that in itself is just trying to think in a way that makes you feel more good about yourself. Okay, great. So number 6. So a blank is a claim about the cause of a person's behavior. So A, an explanation, B, inference, C, attribution, or D, assumption. Right, it's definitely C, connected to number 6 is just a repeat of number 5. So it is attribution. Okay, so number 7. So the tendency of people to alter their behavior as a result of group pressure is called A, obedience, B, attribution, C, conformity, or D, social comparison. Okay, great. Yes, so the answer is C, conformity. And it seems everyone grasped that very well. So we can move on to number 8. So although he knew he was right, Paul changed his answer under pressure from the other 3 members on the panel. And Paul's behavior demonstrates the power of A, conformity, B, the social foci, C, leadership, D, the social attribution error. Okay, great. Yes, the answer is A, conformity. Okay, moving on to number 9.
Excuse me. What is social foci?
In all honesty, I really don't know. I don't think that's a term you have to know. But let me just double check for you. Okay, yeah, that's not a term you need to know, so that's fine. All right, so for number 9, in his famous study, this researcher recruited college students to portray either guards or prisoners with some rather shocking results. So A, Spears, B, Milgram, C, Ash, or D, Zimbardo. Okay, I'm seeing some D's, I'm seeing B's. Okay, so those of you who said D are correct. It is Zimbardo. B, Stanley Milgram, he ran the electric shock experiment. Are you guys familiar with that one? Yes. Okay, so Milgram ran a shock experiment where he had, so the participant, yes, Milgram did obedience. He was studying obedience, and he was trying to understand like why Nazis did all that horrible stuff. So sorry for the noise. He was trying to study why Nazis were so obedient and they did all this horrible stuff, even though so many of them said they were just following orders. So he conducted this experiment where he had volunteer participants come in, and they were given like a shock board. I think there's a video on YouTube that you guys can look at, but he had an assistant. Milgram had an assistant who would sit on the other side of the wall where this person had access to this electrical shock system. And the participant was told, if you're going to ask the person on the opposite wall a question, if they get it wrong, you have to give them a shock. And for each additional wrong answer they get, you're going to increase the shock. So the assistant on the other side obviously was in on this. He wasn't connected to anything that would actually shock him. He just kind of made noises if he was administered the shock, quote unquote. So he was testing to see if these participants would actually give increasingly more dangerous shocks to the person on the other side of the wall. So there was a point at which where the shock level was so high that the assistant pretended to stop responding, like they passed out or they died or something. So the participant believed that they either seriously injured or killed the person on the other side of this wall. So Milgram was just studying to see how far someone would go, just because someone told them to. So that was Milgram. And Zimbardo, he did this experiment, the Stanford prison experiment. So yeah, are you guys familiar with that one as well? I think there's a whole movie on it if you want to get a deeper understanding of it. Okay, so that's one person. Everyone else is clear on the difference between Milgram and Zimbardo. I hope I explained that well enough for you guys. Okay, great. So everyone's okay to move on? The movie is called The Stanford Prison Experiment, and I believe it's still on Netflix, so you can watch that. It's pretty good. I'll type it in the chat. Okay, so we can move on to number 10. Everyone's good? Okay, moving on. So number 10, when an individual who is part of a larger group chooses to put forth less effort than other group members, blank occurs. So A, cognitive dissonance, B, social loafing, C, conformity, or D, the bystander effect. Okay, great. Yes, the answer is B, that is social loafing. Okay, so number 11, helping others for unselfish reasons is called A, altruism, B, egoism, C, situationalism, or D, influentialism. Okay, yeah. The answer is A. Sorry?
Can you go back up a little, please? I didn't see number 10's question.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
No problem. Well, yes, everyone is right. Number 11 is altruism. Do you have number 10? Can I move on to number 12?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so the intent to harm another, either physically or verbally, is referred to as A, scapegoating, B, prejudice, C, aggression, or D, discrimination. Okay, yeah. So the answer is C, that's aggression. Okay, so number 13, sociologists are more concerned with A, abnormal behavior, B, systems in society, C, adolescent crises, or D, economic and political trends? Okay, yeah. The answer is B. So sociologists are more concerned with systems in society. So number 14, analyzing the capacities for different types of group behavior is referred to as A, variability, B, changeability, C, situational analysis, or D, groupthink. So someone says A. Lauren says B. Okay. Lots of different answers. So the actual answer is A. It is variability. Or different. Okay, yeah. So the answer is A, variability. What are the others? So changeability. Changeability, I guess it's just the ability to change. I don't really remember that term being used in psychology. Situational analysis. I think the situational analysis is more of it's a social psychology term where you're just kind of analyzing what is already happening in the system to see what kind of changes you can make. So that's when you're like working on a community level and you're trying to make life better for people. So you're just trying to see what's going on. And then groupthink, that's the effect that occurs when a group comes to a decision pretty quickly and unanimously. And it happens when the group's desire to have a unanimous decision, like everyone comes to the same conclusion, that desire overrides their motivation to properly assess the situation and to consider all plans of action. And it's more likely to happen if groups, they're cohesive, they all like each other, or they all kind of think the same way. And if there are constraints, like there's stressors on the group to make a decision. I think a good example of this, of groupthink, is the Bay of Pigs. I'm going to type it in the chat. It happened with the US government, I think in the 60s, but I don't exactly remember the ins and outs of it. So I'm not going to confuse you guys. So you can look this up, the Bay of Pigs, and that's associated with groupthink. Okay, we're all good with number 14? Okay, moving on. So we're at number 15 now. So symbolic interactionists believe that A, humans sometimes interact with each other, B, quantitative methods cannot be used to study human interaction, C, individuals should be studied in their natural settings, or D, the self has no role in understanding others. Okay, Danica is saying C. Anybody else? C. Right, so the answer is C. Symbolic interactionists do believe that individuals should be studied in their natural settings. For 13 and 14, so the answer for 13 is B, and the answer for 14 is A. Okay, so number 16. So Kurt Lewin realized that A, being a soldier results in PTSD, B, situational factors are not important in explaining behavior, C, interaction in places too much emphasis on situational factors, or D, one's perception of the world is influenced by what they have to do with the situation. Okay. D. Okay, yes, you all are right. The answer is D. One's perception of the world is influenced by what they have to do with the situation. Alrighty, so number 17. Milgram examined other explanations for obedience and was able to manipulate the independent variables such as the amount of feedback and proximity from the learner to the teacher, and the physical proximity and prestige of the experimental. Milgram was not only trying to replicate his original findings, but he was also trying to demonstrate which of the other principles of scientific thinking. So that's A, falsifiability, B, replicability, C, ruling out rival hypotheses, or D, Occam's razor.
We're kind of supervising, and we're trying to pull up on some of the ones we're supervising. So no, it hasn't changed.
Any guesses? C, A. A or C? C. Okay, so the answer is C. So you guys remember me explaining like how Milgram was conducting this experiment? So by looking at the amount of feedback from the learner to the teacher, or the proximity from the learner to the teacher, so he was trying to look at other factors that could possibly influence the participant from pressing that shock button. And the experimenter, which was Milgram, whether how close he was to them or how prestigious he looked. He was trying to see if those had any influences on obedience so he was trying to see if those factors could explain their behavior. So the answer for 17 would be C, trying to rule out rival hypotheses. 15. No, 15 is, what is 15? 15 is C. Individuals should be studied in their natural settings. Okay. So we are at number 18. So Sheldon is the oldest of his siblings. When he's left at home with his siblings, he knows he has the responsibility to take care of them. When his parents come home, however, he feels like he can be a child again. This is an example of A, attribution, B, attitude, C, attraction and love, or D, role theory. Okay, great. Yes, so the answer is D. There is an example of role theory. Okay, number 19. Which of the following researchers' work was the most influential in shaping our understanding of conformity? A. Hans Eysenck, B. Solomon Asch, C. Martin Seligman, or D. Muzaffar Sherif? Okay, B. Okay, yes, you guys are right. So the answer for this is B. Is everyone familiar with the Asch experiment, I think it was called? Yes, the Asch experiment. Okay, I'll answer this question first. Who are the other people? So Hans Eysenck, he had a personality theory, I believe, but I don't think you cover that in 1000. I think you cover that once you get to second year. And the other two, to be honest, I have no idea. But the Asch experiment was an experiment in conformity. So basically, Asch had one person come in to sit among a group of people, and basically he would have, it was a multiple choice test, so to say. And the aim was for the group to answer which of the lines is the longest, A, B, C, or D. And usually it was very clear which line was the longest. Like you could very clearly see that, say, C was the longest line, right? So in this experiment, he did have one participant, and everyone else in the group were his research assistants. So all of the assistants would pick a line that was obviously not the right answer. And he would see if the participant would go along with the group and choose the obviously wrong answer, or go off on his own and actually pick the right answer. I don't exactly remember the percentages and the statistics of it, but a lot of the participants actually chose the obviously wrong answer just because the rest of the group was saying it. All clear on that one? Great, lovely. Yes, so number 19 is B, Asch. Okay, so moving on to number 20. George generally believes he has the personal resources to handle the demands of his life. So he has high A, self-esteem, B, self-concept, C, self-efficacy, or D, self-awareness. Shanali, I have this paper from when I was doing Psych 1000, so I can ask my lecturer if it can be sent to you guys, and see if you can have access to it. So everyone's saying C. Okay, right, you guys are correct. So that is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is believing that you have what it takes to handle the stresses of life. Okay. Number 21. So the tendency of people to alter their behavior did we answer this question already? To alter their behavior as a result of group pressure is called A, obedience, B, attribution, C, conformity, or D, social comparison? Right, yeah, the past couple of questions have looked at conformity. So this is indeed conformity. All right, so number 2. So Shari just got married. Now she willingly takes care of her husband along with taking care of herself. Her new responsibilities are as a result of A, an ascribed role, B, a complementary role. This should be an E. A complementary, C, an achieved role, or D, a submissive role. So C, right. Okay, yeah, so this is an achieved role. Right, so moving on to 23. So the difference between conformity and obedience is A, conformity is influence from peers or colleagues, and obedience is influence from authority. B, conformity occurs to most anything, while obedience is unquestioning devotion to a single cause. C, conformity is the result of inoculation, while obedience is the result of fear. And D, non-existent. There is no difference. Okay, C, A, or D. A, C, or A. C. Okay. The correct answer is A. So conformity is influence from peers or colleagues, while obedience is influence from authority. Are we all good on that?
What did you say the answer was A?
Yeah, the answer is A. Okay, so number 24. So the emphasis on group unanimity at the expense of critical thinking is called A, de-individuation, B, conformity, C, obedience, or D, groupthink. Okay. D, A, or D, A. Okay, so the answer for this one is D. So the emphasis on group unanimity, I think this is the emphasis on the group all coming to the same decision at the expense of critical thinking is called groupthink. Wouldn't A be conformity? De-individuation occurs with conformity, I believe. Let me just double check that. Or actually, no. It doesn't really occur with conformity. It's more of feeling anonymous in a big group of people. So this is you can see this with like riots, like, oh, after a sports game and your team loses, everybody runs out onto the field and like starts breaking stuff. So it's like when you're in a big group, you kind of have a reduced sense of yourself as an individual, and you think of yourself as the group instead of the individual. Does that make sense? So you're more likely to, in that case, you're more likely to be controlled by what other people are doing because you feel anonymous, like you feel faceless just because there are so many people around you that you lose your sense of individuality. Are we good on question 24? No, so the answer is D, groupthink. So groupthink happens when you want so badly for everyone to come to the same decision that you overlook other factors that go into the decision. So, for example, with groupthink, you and your friends could be, you all want to go out to eat and you're trying to decide on the restaurant, and you want to go to Chilitos, but your friend wants to go to Wendy's and another friend wants to go to, I don't know, Burger King, right? But you all agree, you just say, oh, let's go to Burger King, just so that you can come to the final decision, instead of trying to argue, hey, maybe let's go to Chilitos because the food is better, or hey, let's maybe go to Wendy's because you get better bang for your buck. Or you just want to come to a decision, so you just say something, you're like, yes, let's go with that, instead of like thinking out each option. Yeah, so the answer for 24 is D. Okay, so 25. So an attitude A is a conclusion regarding factual evidence. B includes an emotional component. C, behavior reasonably well. Or D includes a physiological component. Okay, so I'm saying B. Okay, right. Yes, so an attitude does include an emotional component, right? Because attitudes have 3 components, correct? The ABC, so we have the affective, which is the feelings and emotions, B, the behavioral, and then C, the cognitive, our thoughts and beliefs, right? Okay, so moving on to 26. So devoid of any retribution, thousands of fans at a football game swarmed the field, climbed on the goalposts, yelled, screamed, took their clothes off. And this behavior of normally mild-mannered citizens is known as A, individuation, B, de-individuation, C, demoralization, or D, demonification. Any guesses?
B.
Okay, B. I'm seeing a C. B. Yes, right. So this was the example I was just trying to give up here. Yes, so this is de-individuation. Okay, so number 27. So blank suggests that we start with a small request before asking for a bigger one. So this is A, foot in the door, B, door in the face, C, the low ball technique, or D, the bait and switch technique. Right. Yes, so this is a foot in the door technique. Okay, so
Wait, what was number 26?
20 individuation, that's B. And 27 is A, foot in the door technique. 25,
Yeah.
no problem. 25 is B, an attitude includes an emotional component. Okay, so we're going to 28. So drawing negative conclusions about a person, group of people, or situation prior to evaluating the evidence is known as A, prejudice, B, adaptive conservatism, C, discrimination, or D, in-group bias. Okay, so someone is saying C, A, C, C. Okay. A lot of people are saying C. There are a few A's in there, but the answer is A, prejudice. So prejudice is the thought that you have or the attitude that you have towards a particular group of people. And then discrimination would actually be acting on those thoughts or treating the person based on how you think of them. So 28 would be A, prejudice, and not discrimination. It's only discrimination if they act on those thoughts. Right, okay. Everyone clear on the difference? Okay, lovely. So moving on to number 29. So Mike is a great football player. Last Saturday, his new girlfriend attended the game to watch him play, and Mike played even better than usual. So Mike's enhanced performance demonstrates the phenomenon known as social influence, social facilitation, social conformity, or the bystander effect. A or D?
Wait, can you go back up to 27 for a minute?
Sure. 27, the answer is A for that one.
Okay, and you said 28 was A as well?
Yes, 28 is A.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so for number 29, seeing a lot of answers, but the actual answer is B, social facilitation. So social facilitation is what happens when people show like an increased level of effort or better performance as a result of real or imagined or implied presence of other people. So just the fact that his girlfriend was there at his game, he played better than usual, and that's social facilitation. Are we all good on that one? Everyone understand? Okay, great.
Can you read, please?
Sure, no problem. So 29, the answer is B, social facilitation. And social facilitation refers to individuals having a better performance or they increase their efforts in doing something just based on the presence of someone else. And the presence can be real or it can be imagined. So Mike's girlfriend showing up to his game made him play better. All clear? Okay. So we're moving on to number 30. I think we're about halfway through now. Sorry?
I was asking what's A then?
What is A? Oh, social influence. Okay. Just give me one quick second. Trying to find my notes on this so it's absolutely clear.
I think social influence is a change in the behavior caused by real or imagined pressure from others. I don't know.
Right. I'm just going to look up a quick definition to make it absolutely clear. That sounds correct though. The social influence comprises the ways in which individuals change their behavior to meet the demands of a social environment. Right, so it's the process whereby words or actions of other people either directly or indirectly influence your behavior. And so the different types of influence are conformity, which we've talked about a lot with these questions. There is also obedience, and then there's compliance. So those are the types of social influence. Are we good? Okay, lovely. Okay, so number 30. So group brainstorming is less effective than individual brainstorming because A, group members may be anxious about being evaluated by others, B, because of social loafing, C, because of social facilitation, or D, group members may be anxious about being evaluated by others and because of social loafing. So there's E, D. Right, so the answer is D. So group brainstorming is less effective because group members may be anxious about being evaluated or judged by others and because of social loafing. Okay, so 31. Which criterion would designate a person who never talks to anyone as abnormal? So A, dysfunctional, C, statistical rarity, C, subjective distress, or D, malnutritious. Okay, so C. Someone says B. Okay, so Erica is right. The answer is actually B, statistical rarity. So it's only abnormal if the way this person interacts with people, if it's rare, like it's not normal. So does anyone remember the what makes a behavior abnormal? What makes it a disorder? If you do, you can turn on your mic or you can type it in the chat, or I can just go over it myself.
from the norms set by society. So we include like rarity. Yeah, that's basically it. Once you're not considering doing what the average or normal person is doing within that time frame, then encompass a abnormality.
Right. And there's also the other criteria of, so yeah, you mentioned it's statistically rare. Also, the individual should be experiencing subjective distress. So mental illnesses produce unemotional pain for individuals. So if this is present, then the behavior or the symptoms would be classified as abnormal and the person may be diagnosed. But not everybody with a mental illness needs to have distress, but it is a significant criterion for many disorders. Another criterion is impairment. So a lot of mental illnesses do impair an individual's ability to perform in their everyday life. So at work or at school, at home, like in their relationships, with taking care of themselves. So if they're impaired in several aspects of their life because of this symptom or behavior or disorder, then it is also abnormal. And it could include biological impairments as well. All clear with that? Everyone's good? Yes, societal disapproval as well. Okay, so let me just go over the criteria one more time. So to define a mental disorder, it's statistically rare. The individual may experience subjective distress, impairment, societal disapproval. Right. Okay, so moving on to number 32. So you are a psychologist who is evaluating the behavior of a new client. And the client tells you that he does not like to wear clothing and that he walks around nude most of the time. In addition, he tells you that he lives in a society in which clothing is required and nudity is seen as abnormal. So which of the following is not a criterion by which you evaluate your client's behavior as abnormal? So is it A, statistical rarity, B, impairment, C, subjective distress, or D, societal disapproval? Okay, good, yes. So the answer is C. In this case, it is not, there's no distress, but it would be abnormal behavior based on the rarity, on the impairment of living in society, and societal disapproval. Okay, so number 33. Any behavior that does not allow a person to function within or adapt to the stresses and everyday demands of life is considered abnormal because it creates A, deviance, B, distress, C, disapproval, or D, impairment. Okay, so I'm seeing A, D, A. I'm seeing B. Okay, so the answer for number 33 would be D, impairment. So remember, you're impaired if what you're experiencing doesn't allow you to function nor as normal as you would. And it's difficult to adapt to stress and demands. So that is impairment. Are we all good on that one? We can see why it's impairment and not distress. Okay, I'm going to take your, repeat. So I'm saying that 33 is impairment and not distress, because impairment, if someone is impaired in their daily life, it's because they're not functioning normally and they can't adapt to stress and what's going on. It's very difficult for them, while distress is a person experiencing emotional pain. So 33 would be impairment and not distress. 32, yeah, 32 is C, subjective distress. Okay, so we're all good on 32 and 33. We can move on. Okay, lovely. So 34, sorry. Any pattern of behavior that causes people significant distress is uncommon in society and or harms their ability to function in daily life. This may indicate the presence of A, a mental disorder, B, humors, C, stress syndrome, or D, adaptive behavior. Okay, great. So you all are right. The answer is A. This does indicate presence of a mental disorder. Okay, so number 35, the primary purpose of the DSM. The primary purpose of the DSM-5 is to A, help psychologists assess only normal behavior, B, keep the number of diagnostic categories of mental disorders to a minimum, C, help psychological professionals diagnose psychological disorders, or D, describe the causes of common physiological disorders. Okay, right. Yeah, so you all are correct. The DSM-5 is used to help psychological professionals diagnose psychological disorders. Okay, so number 36. The prevalence of a disorder refers to A, its accuracy or correctness as a diagnosis of a real mental illness, B, the agreement among professionals about a diagnosis for a specific patient or client, C, the percentage of persons within a population who exhibit the symptoms of a particular disorder, or D, the popularity of a diagnosis among different types of mental health professionals. And yes, you all are right. So prevalence does refer to the percentage of persons within a population who exhibit the symptoms of a particular disorder. So moving on to 37. Which of the following is a disorder that takes the form of a bodily ailment that has no physical cause? A, anxiety, B, somatoform, C, dissociative, or D, psychophysiological? So I'm seeing one person answering B. Does anybody have a different answer? A. Okay. Well, Erico is right. So the answer is B, somatoform. Are we all clear on why this is a somatoform disorder?
Do you have an example of this?
Okay. So somatoform is okay, let me look up an example. for you?
Miss, it's like the phantom pregnancy. Like when somebody say that they're pregnant, but they don't have
they're
any
not. Right. So someone would. That's a good example. Yes. So someone would exhibit it, but they're not actually pregnant. Right. Is that clear for everyone? So you have these physical ailments, but it doesn't have a physical cause. It's just kind of it's physical symptoms that are manifesting because of something that you're feeling or thinking, but it's not an actual medical cause. Right. Okay. So 38. Victims of sexual assault may experience strong stress reactions, intense anxiety, and flashbacks to their attacks from environmental cues that remind them of being attacked and helpless. If these become frequent, intense, and debilitating, the person may be diagnosed as suffering from generalized anxiety, panic disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, or social anxiety disorder.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, you guys are right. This is, sorry, these are symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, because it's a flashback on what happened.
Right.
A person's dash is their typical way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Person's personality.
Can you scroll down?
Okay. Oh, sorry. Sure. Okay, so we're going on to number 39. So a person's blank is their typical way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Temperament, personality, attribution, or psyche. And right. You all are right. The answer is B, personality. Okay, so number 40. Which theory of personality is most concerned with understanding people's unconscious motivations? A, behavioral, B, humanism, C, psychoanalytic, or D, trait?
Sigmund Freud.
Right. Yeah, the answer is C. So this is psychoanalytic personality theory, the main focus is making the unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
So 41. Some authors relate Freud's personality structure to an iceberg, saying that the blank is completely submerged in our unconscious. So is that the A id, B ego, C superego, or D defense mechanisms? A. Right, so you guys are correct. The answer is A. The part of our personality is completely submerged in our unconscious. Okay, 42. So according to Freud, the ego is A, the moral component, B, the decision maker, C, the primitive instinct, or D, the collective unconscious.
B.
Right, yes. The answer is B, ego is the decision maker. Okay, so 43. According to Freud,
According to Freud, defense mechanism are unconscious.
Unconscious attempts to minimize feelings of A, denial, B, anxiety, C, repression, or D, regression. Right. Yes, the answer is B. Defense mechanisms are unconscious attempts to minimize feelings of anxiety. Okay, so 43. After a day when all of his students come backtrack to where? Which question? The id one, okay. Yeah, 41. You want me to explain the difference between id ego and superego? Okay. Yeah, there's a 43 twice. It's a typo. So id is the easiest way to remember the difference between the components are is the yes of our personality, ego is the maybe, and superego is the no. So id part of our personality, that is, yes, that's right. Id would be like the devil on your shoulder. Ego would be yourself, and then the angel on your other shoulder would be the superego. So id wants, it's the pleasure seeking part of your personality. Whatever you want, you must have, and that is the id. It always gives it, it's very impulsive. It just wants what makes it feels good, and that's it. There's no questions about it. Id says yes to everything. Then the superego is the complete opposite, where they say no to everything. This is the moral component of personality. And it's like, oh, you want to watch Netflix while you should be studying? Absolutely not. The id, let's just use it. Yeah, sorry, I jumped into that example. Let's use this example of wanting to watch Netflix when you need to study for your exam. So the id would be like, yes, I don't want to study. I want to binge watch The Crown or whatever. We are going to do that right now. And the superego is going to say, no, absolutely not. You must study for your exam. No matter what you want, you have to sit down without any distractions, nothing at all. And the ego would be the maybe. So like in 42, the ego is a decision maker. So it is going to try and balance out the id and the superego. So your id wants to watch Netflix. Your superego is like, yes, let's study. But the ego would compromise and say, okay, let us study for 2 hours, and then we can go watch Netflix and result for the rest of the night. Yeah, ego is the reality. Defense mechanism. Oh, okay, yeah. So ego is so id, ego, and superego, those are components of your personality. And then defense mechanisms are ways that our brains try to deal with everyday anxiety. And then I think the following questions get into the different types. Yeah. So going to this question, we can talk about the different types of defense mechanisms. Everyone's good? On id, ego, and superego? Okay, lovely. So we are going to 44. Well, it should be 44, but it's a second 43. Okay, so after a day when all of his students complained about the way he graded their papers, his boss doubled his workload and he got a speeding ticket on his way home. So Nick yelled at his wife for leaving her toothbrush on the bathroom counter. So this is an example of A, displacement, B, projection, C, regression, or D, sublimation. Okay, I'm seeing A, I'm seeing B. A, B. Okay, so the correct answer is displacement. So displacement is, it's moving a negative emotion you feel, and instead of taking it out on the person you're actually feeling a negative feeling towards, you take it out on a less threatening subject, right? So in this question, Nick was really mad with his boss, and he was mad, I guess, with the police for giving him a speeding ticket. That's where his anger is directed towards. But instead of directing it where it belongs, he directed it to his wife. So that emotion was displaced. Projection now is completely different from displacement, where projection is kind of like, it's something, it's a negative thought you have about yourself, but you don't want to think that way about yourself, so you put it onto someone else. Let me try and find a better example of projection. If anyone has any off the top of their heads, feel free, but I'm just gonna try and look for a good one. So say you're in a fight with somebody, like you're in a fight with your brother because he was supposed to wash the dishes and he didn't, so your mom got angry at the both of you, right? So you're having an argument with him, you start screaming, yelling, you're obviously feeling very angry, and you say to him, why are you being so hostile? Why are you provoking me? Why are you getting so mad? When it's really yourself, when you're really the person getting mad, but you don't want to acknowledge that. So you put it onto someone else and you're saying, oh yeah, you're doing this in this situation, when in reality, you're doing it yourself. Yeah, like this example, that's a good one too. A bully may project their own feelings of vulnerability onto the target. So they could, I don't know, you have a small head, but you're insecure about your own small head, but you're putting down someone else to make yourself feel better. That's a good example of projection. Thank you for that. Do we want to go through all the other defense mechanisms before we move on? No? We're
Yes.
good with, okay, yes? Okay, we can go through them really quickly. So the defense mechanisms are denial, displacement, projection, repression, regression, sublimation, rationalization, and reaction formation. So denial is just arguing against an anxiety-provoking stimulus by saying, look, this just doesn't exist. This is not happening. Very straightforward one. Displacement, just went through that. Projection, we went through that. Repression is when you force negative feelings, a negative experience so far into your unconscious that you forget it ever happened. It's no longer in your memory. To you, that never happened. And it's different from denial, where denial, you know it happened, but you're just not admitting that it happened. Where with repression, you genuinely do not have the memory of it anymore. With regression, you're returning a previous stage in your development, and it's usually a stage where you felt very comfortable. So like say as a teenager, you're experiencing, I don't know, a lot of stress with like life changes and just becoming an adult. and this is so anxiety inducing to you that you kind of go back to a behavior you did in your childhood where everything was safe. So you could be rocking yourself, or you end up wetting your bed again, or you start sucking your fingers again. You just display a behavior that you were displaying in a previous time, a more comfortable time, a more safe time in your life. Rationalization is basically just trying to come up with a logical or rational reason for something happening, as opposed to a real reason, to the real reason. Like the example I was giving earlier in our session, you're usually a straight A student, but in this one course you failed, and you failed maybe because you didn't put in the effort, or you just couldn't model this course, so you failed this course. But you rationalize that because you just can't handle the thought of it being your fault. You say, oh, it wasn't my fault, it was the teacher's fault, they weren't that good, or this course was too hard. So you're just trying to find a logical reason as to why something happened, as opposed to the actual reason. Sublimation, that is acting out unacceptable impulses in a socially acceptable way. So if you have a lot of aggression, you could channel that anger and energy into boxing or wrestling instead of beating up your little brother, you know? And then reaction formation, this is transforming an unacceptable desire or an impulse into its extreme excessive opposite. So say you hate your sister, and you know that's not right. So to make up for that, you treat her like she's your favorite person in the world. You're so lovey-dovey, and you just try and act the complete opposite as to how you feel, so that you can feel better about having this unacceptable feeling, impulse, whatever it may be. Yeah, I think that's all of the mechanisms. Are we all clear?
Can you repeat the last one you said a while ago?
Reaction formation. So you would change your unacceptable desire or impulse or feeling into its extreme excessive opposite. So you hate someone, but you act like you absolutely love them to try and compensate for these feelings you don't want to have.
Is it change unacceptable desires to completely different?
Yeah, to its extreme opposite.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving on to 44. Which perspective on personality development is most concerned with how one's learning history influences who they later become? So is that A, behavioral, B, humanism, existential, C, psychoanalytic, or D, trait? Okay, so someone says D, someone says B, D, A.
D.
Okay, so the actual answer is C. This is psychoanalytic, where Freud believed that your childhood is very influential on who you become as an adult. It wouldn't be behavioral, which is A. It wouldn't be that, because they focus on your present behaviors and your symptoms. It doesn't really matter what happened in the past. We're just focusing on fixing behaviors now. Humanistic approach is more of looking at the person now as well. It does take into account what happened in your past, but psychoanalytic theory does. And traits, I think traits is your, I'm not sure, I don't know if they specify how early personality develops, but yeah, the answer is psychoanalytic, C. Okay, so 45, what was the third major force in the field of personality psychology? Is it A, behaviorism, B, humanism, C, psychoanalytic, or D, social learning? Third major. B. B, right. The third major force is humanistic. Okay, almost at the end now. Does this paper now have classical and operant? I'm not sure, but when we're finished, we could go over classical and operant if you need more clarification. Okay. So 46, which statement best fits humanistic philosophy? A, I had to take psychology. B, I felt compelled to take psychology. C, I don't know why I signed up for psychology. Or D, I wanted to take psychology. D. The review session is going to be posted on YouTube, I believe, right, Chanel? But yes, the recording will be available later. I'm seeing D, I'm seeing C. So the answer is D. I wanted to take psychology. And that's because humanistic approach really focuses on taking personal responsibility. So by saying, yes, I wanted to take psychology, you're acknowledging, yeah, what you wanted pretty much. Yeah, free will. Okay, so 47. The most well-known humanistic theorist was A, Sigmund Freud, B, Carl Rogers, C, Carl Jung, or D, Alfred Adler. Right, yes. The answer is B, Carl Rogers. Okay, so 48. According to Rogers, expectations we place on ourselves for appropriate and inappropriate behaviors are called A, self-actualization, B, conditions of worth, C, locus of control, or D, openness to experience. 46 was D, I wanted to take psychology. Okay, so for 48, a lot of you are saying A, but the answer is actually B, conditions of worth. So conditions of worth, yeah, like it says, they are the expectations we place on ourselves for appropriate and inappropriate behavior. Self-actualization is more associated with Maslow and his hierarchy of needs, and self-actualization is at the top. Are we clear on that one? Why it's B and not A?
could you explain locus of control, please?
I don't really remember where that comes under. Let me just double check that for you. Okay, so locus of control is a psychological concept that refers to how strongly people believe they have control over the situations and experiences that affect their lives. I'm not sure if that falls under any specific theory or if it's just a concept on its own. Yeah, it's just the extent to which you believe you have control over your life. Is that clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Okay, so 49. According to Maslow, a self-actualized person is someone who is concerned with, or is someone who is A, concerned with developing friendships with others, B, is creative and spontaneous, C, is extroverted and outgoing, or D, self-centered. Okay, I'm saying C, I'm saying D, I'm saying B. Right, yes, you're all right. The answer is B, creative and spontaneous. So here in my notes, I could list out the characteristics of someone who is self-actualized. So someone who is self-actualized is spontaneous in thought and action. They accept themselves and others for what and who they are. They're concerned for the welfare of humanity. They focus on real world problems. They have a few deep friendships rather than superficial ones. They're self-confident but not self-centered. And they have a strong need for privacy because they're not concerned with being popular. They're just satisfied with who they are and where they are in life. Yeah, that's the section. Self-actualized person. So moving on to number 50. I think we only have 5 more questions after this. So psychotherapy is an intervention designed to help people to deal with and manage A, legal problems, B, financial problems, C, interpersonal problems only, or D, behavioral, emotional, and interpersonal problems. Okay, you all are right. So the answer is D, behavioral, emotional, and interpersonal problems. Okay, 51. So in what brand of psychotherapy would a clinical psychologist attempt to uncover the underlying unconscious conflicts and impulses that are the cause of one's psychological difficulties? So that A, behavioral, B, cognitive behavioral, C, humanistic, or D, psychoanalytic? Right, that's D, psychoanalytic, where we're trying to make the unconscious conscious. Question for 50, sure, no problem. And the answer for 50 is D, behavioral, emotional, and interpersonal problems. Okay, so moving on to 52. So George begins to project his anxieties and unresolved feelings about his mother onto his therapist. This is what Sigmund Freud would have called A, free association, B, resistance, C, transference, or D, working through. I'm seeing A, I'm seeing C. Okay, so the answer is C. So the difference between free association and transference. So free association would be the type of therapy that the therapist is administering. So like George would just be talking freely, talking out whatever comes to mind, whatever. And then transference is when the patient or client kind of uses the therapist as, they see the therapist as the person that they have the issue with. So in this case with George, he would see the therapist kind of as his mother and then work through his problems by talking to the therapist like the therapist was his mom, essentially. So that's just one way the patient works through their issues. Does that make sense? Is everyone clear on why 52
Yes, we're
is C
clear.
and not A? Okay, great, lovely. So moving on to 53. So a behavioral therapist is most likely to focus on A, the past and broad traits, B, the past and specific behaviors, C, the present and broad traits, or D, the present and specific behaviors. Right, the answer is D. A behavioral therapist is most likely to focus on present and specific behaviors. So 54, cognitive behavioral therapists would argue that anxiety and mood disorders are largely the result of A, conditional positive regard, B, maladaptive cognitions, C, maladaptive behaviors, or D, unresolved childhood issues. Right, so the answer, yes, the answer is B. Cognitive behavioral therapists would argue that it's largely a result of maladaptive cognitions. Okay, so final question. So Blank's rational emotive behavior therapy emphasizes changing how we think, but it also focuses on changing how we behave. So is that A, Beck, B, Rogers, C, Ellis, or D, Wolf? Okay, so I'm seeing C, I'm seeing B. So the answer 455 is C. This is Ellis's rational emotive behavior therapy. 54 is B, maladaptive cognitions. Okay, so that is the final question. This is just the answer key. Is everyone all good on everything? Does anyone want to go over any topics before we close? I hope everything I said was clear. I hope I didn't lose anybody. Oh, Lauren said you wanted to go over classical and operant conditioning. Do you still want to go through that? Because we can go over that. Okay. So should I just a review, or do you have any specific questions? Well, you're welcome, everyone. Glad everyone understands. Okay, so we're going to just review classical and operant conditioning very quickly. I know it's getting a little late. Okay, so the difference between examples for classical and operant, yes, I do have examples. Okay, so classical conditioning is learning through association, while operant conditioning is learning through consequences. So classical conditioning, I'm sure you guys have all heard the example of Pavlov's dogs, where eventually he conditioned them to drool at the sound of a bell.